Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to an episode of the 99 Names. In this episode, or in this video, we're going to be going over the name
AlJawaad.
AlJawaad, or you said AlJawaad. Does that work too?
No, it's AlJawaad.
AlJawaad. So Alif Lam.
The Jim, you know, you studied Shamsi and Qamari letters in Arabic. The letters that you pronounce the Alif Lam in, and the letters that you don't pronounce the lam in, sorry.
Okay.
Those the letters where you pronounce the lam in the al, these are called qamari letters because it's like al-qamar. You pronounce the lam.
Okay.
As for the shamsi letters, those are the ones where you do not pronounce the lam and you swallow it up.
Okay.
And those are called shamsi because when you say ash-shams, you don't pronounce the lam.
Gotcha.
So those are called shamsi letters. And the jim is a qamari letter. So
like
you say
Ar-Rahman.
Yes, exactly. So Ar-Rahman would be which one?
The Shamsi. Boom.
As for the Jim, it's qamari. So you say Al-Jannah.
Okay. Al-Jannah.
Al-Jawad.
Got it.
I remember that in particular because I used to have a problem with the Jim. I used to always pronounce it as
Al-Jawad.
Yeah, I would pronounce it as
Al-Jannah.
Shamsi. And I was corrected back in the day. Yeah.
Was it with the stick?
No, it wasn't with the stick. It was just stop saying Al-Jannah. Stop saying Al-Jannah. It's Al-Jannah.
So in this case, the spelling would be Alif Lam Jim Waw Alif Dal.
Yeah, it doesn't affect the spelling, or we're not talking about that anymore. You're not talking about the Shamsi and the Qamari. No. Yeah. So the spelling is Alif Lam Jim Waw Alif Dal.
Okay.
And Al-Jawad, Jude is generosity.
Interesting. Okay.
Jude is generosity, benevolence.
So
Jim Waw Dal
equals generous.
And Jude is a girl's name, by the way.
Judy.
No, Jude in Arabic is a girl's name.
Is that where
means generosity?
Okay.
But it's also one of those interesting names that works perfectly in English. Jude.
Yeah, Jude.
Jude.
Jude. So would Judy be the same thing?
I don't know what Judy means, but Jude in English is...
where was Nuh alayhi salam's boat finally rested?
I have no idea. Why?
I heard it was like Mount Judy or something like that.
Okay, I don't know.
You're like, where?
But I'm just laughing because of how random you just took it. Like, it was just so random. This is season 3 and we're starting off exactly where we left off in season 2. With Bilal asking random questions that make you scratch your head.
And then the next thing that came into my mind is Judge Judy.
Yes, of course. So, where do we get this concept? How do we know that Al-Jawad is one of the names of Allah?
Okay. Sure.
So, for us to say that it is a name of Allah, we have to have proof.
Yes.
From
the Quran and Sunnah.
From the Quran and Sunnah. Very good. Now, nothing in the Quran indicates that Al-Jawad is one of the names of Allah.
Okay.
So, we have to go to the Sunnah now. So, where do we find it in the Sunnah? Now, there is a famous hadith, the hadith of Abu Dhar, which is reported by Muslim. And that is the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, it's a hadith Qudsi.
Okay.
And this is one of the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi. It's very well known. Where the Prophet ﷺ says that Allah says, Ya ibadi, O my slaves, all of you are misguided except for those who I guide. So ask me for guidance and I will guide you. O my servants, all of you are hungry except for those who I feed. So ask me for food and I will feed you. O my servants, all of you are naked except for those whom I clothe. So ask me for clothing and I will clothe you. And it goes on and on again.
It almost seems like there is a significance in the ordering of what to ask for.
That is true. I didn't notice that before, but it's very true.
Okay.
Right? You start with guidance and then you go to hunger and nakedness and what have you. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hadith that's reported in Muslim doesn't have this particular point. But there is other narrations.
This is in Sahih Muslim?
Yes, this famous part that I've mentioned to you, it's all in Sahih Muslim.
Sure.
Now, Sahih Muslim, his hadith...
Shout out to Sulaiman Hani.
Shaykh Sulaiman is covering Sahih Muslim, yes. Or a hadith from Sahih Muslim in his course, which is called
Into the Mirror.
Into the Mirror, very good.
Yep.
Now this hadith is the one that's in Sahih Muslim. It continues on where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O my servants, if the first of you and the last of you, the ins of you and the jinn of you, the human of you and the jinn of you all got up onto a single plane and asked me for everything, that would not take away from my dominion.
This is the famous hadith that Shaykh Muhammad Sharif uses in Visionaire.
Oh, I'm sure everybody uses this hadith, very much so. Because it talks about the great bounty of Allah and His generosity.
And the fact that it doesn't take anything away from Him.
It doesn't take away anything away from Him. So then the hadith concludes in Muslim by saying, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ibadi innama hiya a'malakum. It is simply your actions. Uhsiha lakum thumma uwaffikum iyaha. I encompass them for you, and I grant you according to them.
Sure.
فَمَنْ وَجَدَ خَيْرًا. So whoever finds goodness, then let them thank Allah. And whoever finds other than that, do not blame anyone but themselves.
Got it.
Sahih Muslim ends there. There's no mention of a Jawad in Sahih Muslim.
Sure.
However, in another varying hadith, narration, reported by Ahmad, reported by At-Tirmidhi, reported by Ibn Majah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ بِأَنِّي جَوَادٌ مَاجِدٌ أَفْعَلُ مَا أُرِيدُ. That is because I am Jawad, Majid, I do what I wish. So this edition is in At-Tirmidhi and Ibn Majah and Ahmad.
Is it still classified as Sahih?
No. Hence the contention. This hadith has weakness in it. And as such, because otherwise there are two names here that are mentioned.
Sure.
Jawadun and Majid. Not Majid. Majid is uncontroversial. It's known to be a name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for Majid, well, that's up for debate. That's up for debate. When you come to the end of any scholars like lists of 99, you're going to get names that are a little bit more controversial. So even Al-Jawad. Is Al-Jawad undoubtedly a name of Allah? All of the hadith are going to be I guess, as you can good say, in authenticity at best.
I think this is one of the things that maybe you can kind of give a little primer, a brief primer on the understanding of what is good and sahih and authentic and inauthentic and made up and weak, like for some. So generally, a
sahih hadith has 5 conditions that are basically met.
Sure.
The first condition is that there is a continuous chain of narration. Everybody in the chain has met everybody. Everybody in the chain, it's from one generation to the next, they've all met each other.
Sure.
In theory. Some scholars said at least they had the expectation or the possibility that they met each other. Whether or not they actually physically met each other and that's documented is a different story. But some of them will say, as long as, for example, they lived in Houston at the same time in the same years, it's expected that they could have met each other. That's good enough for me. So that's number one. The second is that everybody in the chain has to have what's called dabt. And dabt means they have to have accuracy in their
narrative,
in their reporting. The next is the third, which is adl. And adl means that they have to be known to be good, trustworthy, of good quality, of good character, righteous, what have you. So that's the third. So it's not going to be somebody who's known to be a liar or someone who's known to be corrupt in their religiosity or what have you.
Shaykh Mamdou, during Texas Dawah conference, I was saying, hey, you should get some face paint done. And then he laughingly says, then I won't be able to narrate hadith anymore.
See? There you go. And they used to vary in their, what they would consider taking away from a person's adala. A person's uprighted character. You know, some of them, and that's where you have a whole discussion with regards to what's called khawarim al-muru'a, which is basically something, subhanAllah, I don't even know of an English word that translates it, but it's just basically just something that is considered to be inappropriate. For example, you know, they'll give
somebody who cusses a lot.
Not even cusses. Cusses may be super extreme, actually.
Really?
It would be even something, for example, eating ice cream in public.
What?
Walking in shorts.
What's wrong with eating ice cream? What would be inappropriate about that?
See, the fact that you see nothing wrong with it in the Eastern tradition. You know, you wouldn't even see a teacher eat in public.
Really?
Yeah. Like my father, rahimahullah, he would tell me, like, their teachers, they would never see a teacher eat in public. It's considered to be inappropriate.
But Rasulullah would eat in public.
Yeah, Rasulullah would eat in public. But then culture changes, right?
Okay.
Culture changes
and
they
the
develop.
Inappropriateness has to do with the culture of.
Absolutely. It has to do with the culture.
Okay.
So, for example, even now, for example,
okay,
in Sudan, if I saw a person a grown man walking around in shorts,
yeah,
that would be qillat adab, man.
Okay.
It would be completely inappropriate.
Or like
in the US, there's nothing that's considered to be. So, for example, I remember actually sitting in a class with Shaykh Ammar AlShukry.
Okay.
And he was trying to explain this concept. Like that there are just some things that for a religious person would be inappropriate.
Okay.
And so he tried to give the example, and he said, he's sitting in his class and he's saying to them, what do you guys think, for example, he's like, okay, let me give you guys something that would be a no-brainer. He says, what if an imam started to rap? Would that consider to be like inappropriate behavior that would make you guys question this person's? And everybody in the class was like, no, in fact, this guy would be super cool. And then he kind of shook his head and he was like, I guess in America, there's nothing called khawarij wal muru'ah. Like, there's nothing that a person could do that would be. But so.
Like if an imam was to be real, like if somebody were criminal, right? Or with the whole thing with like the Me Too campaign and all that stuff, like if somebody was convicted or found out for any of these inappropriate behaviors, then that would be considered.
Yeah, I mean, the problem that I have with that concept is that it's a lot of, I mean, you're talking about sourced from Islamic values. That's what I would argue. It has to be sourced from Islamic values. Hopefully a tradition, because a lot of times.
But how do you differentiate between things that are sourced from Islamic values versus the culture of the land? Like you're talking about, eating ice cream in public.
Well, nobody considers that now from 𝐷𝑒ْوَارِمْ al-Muru'ah because it's just become something that's very, very, like in this culture, it's not something that's seen as bad at all.
Right. But
I remember certain shuyukh that I had who were very, very hesitant about eating ice cream in public here in the US. They're just kind of like, what, in front of everybody? Like, in front of the public? They saw it because in the Eastern tradition, they never saw anything like that. It was something that was very foreign to them.
Okay.
But to come back to what's on authentic hadith, then we have number 4, min ghayri shududin wala illa. 4 and 5 is it has to not have any shudud. And shudud means that it contradicts something that's stronger than it.
Okay.
For example, something that goes against the verse of the Quran.
Sure. Okay.
Or in the chain, for example, you have.
Would that make a hadith itself like?
If it's contradictory?
Yeah.
Yes. If it's contradictory, it is saying this and the Quran is saying that, then no. Not only that, if you have the
But what about this idea that the hadith might be authentic, but then there was verses later revealed that abrogated.
That's different.
Okay,
that's not contradictory, right?
Okay.
That's explanatory.
Okay.
Explanatory or what have you.
But it would be only explanatory
but if it's, well, that's why it's something that the scholars of hadith figure out.
Okay.
Then we have, but for example, you might have, for example, a chain of a narration where it's all authentic and all of that type of stuff, but it's contradicting a chain that is even stronger.
Oh.
Because the scholars are levels.
Sure.
So you may have a chain that is, this chain here is a chain of what's called like, these are the greatest scholars of hadith.
Sure.
This is their chain.
Yeah.
And they're reporting this. And then you have a second chain, which is, they're all authentic, they're all perfect in their what have you, but they're not of the same level.
Okay.
And again, it's contradictory in a way that's not reconcilable.
Sure.
And so then it becomes shadh. Then we have our 5th one, and our 5th is illah. And illah is a hidden defect.
Okay. What is a hidden defect?
A hidden defect is on the outside.
Yeah.
You look at this chain and everything is fine.
Yeah.
But there is something in the text, or there is something in the narration, or in the chain that is just off. And this is something that is only discernible by the masters.
So it's a very it's nuance.
It's a hidden defect.
Okay.
That's why it's called hidden.
Okay.
Like it's just something where this scholar looks and it says, you know what? This narration, there's something off about it.
But they're able to articulate what that hidden defect is.
They're able to articulate it.
It's only hidden because somebody who is very well aware of the very details of what goes into it is able to intuitively be like, oh, look here, this is where the problem is. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
That's why it's called hidden, because it's on the outside it looks perfectly fine.
Sure. And this is where these 4 or 5 criteria for authentication.
This is for it to be sahih. Now, what's the difference between sahih and hasan?
Sure.
The hasan hadith, which is the category that's right lower of that,
yeah,
it fulfills all of the requirements that the sahih does.
Okay.
Except it is weaker in one category, and that is the dabt, which is the precision of the memory of all of the narrators.
Okay. So there could be one person whose memory is like, he may not be
exactly.
the sharpest tool in the shed.
Boom, it just dropped to hasan.
Okay.
It's no longer sahih.
So in the case of Al-Jawad, this addition to the end of the hadith is because somebody within that chain is not.
Right? Well, to be honest, I don't know. I don't know if this hadith, I haven't looked at the actual gradation of the hadith in the sense of why it's considered to be.
Okay.
But it's not hasan. It's actually mentioned in the weak hadith.
Oh.
So it's actually considered to be
another step down.
Another step down, which is weak. And that's why, if it was hasan, then we might be having a stronger argument for Al-Jawad being one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So the next step down after hasan is da'if.
The next step after hasan is da'if.
Which is that it's weak, but we don't necessarily completely reject it.
No, it's not rejected completely.
Okay. And then the next level. So
then after that you have da'if jiddan, which is very weak.
Okay.
And then the last is you have fabricated. And fabricated is just
we know that somebody made this up, and that's why we're classifying it as
fabricated.
Okay.
But let's just, so that this doesn't become like an 80-minute episode.
Right.
We have here our next hadith, which is reported by Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. He says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, "Inna Allah tayyibun yuhibbu at-tayyib."
He loves good or
Nadhifun yuhibbu an-nadhafa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, pure. He loves purity. He is clean. He loves cleanliness.
Okay.
And this is probably where you've heard this concept of Allah loves cleanliness.
Yeah.
Kareem yuhibbu al-karam. He is generous. He loves generosity. Jawadun yuhibbu al-jud. He is benevolent. He loves benevolence.
Yeah.
And this is reported by Tirmidhi and others. And it's also considered to be weak.
Okay.
It's also considered to be weak. Then we have another hadith, which is hadith also reported by Ibn Abi Shaybah.
So these are all the different hadith where Al-Jawad is mentioned.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Then we have another one, which is a very beautiful hadith, but unfortunately it's weak as well.
Okay.
And that is, Inna Allah azza wa jal jawadun yuhibbul jud. Allah is generous. He loves generosity.
Yeah.
Wa yuhibbu ma'ali al-akhlaq. And he loves lofty character, and he hates lowly character.
Okay.
He loves lofty things. He loves lofty aspirations, lofty goals, lofty character, and he hates lowly character.
So we're talking about people who aim high and go big versus people who just...
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a verse of poetry that says, death seeking greatness is just the same as death
seeking nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Though it's interesting. One of the top guys in marketing right now, who has the fastest growing marketing agency in the history of the business, his motto is, "You're gonna die."
Yeah, so you might as well go hard.
Yeah, he wants to buy the New York Jets. So he's like that's my thing, and everything I'm doing here is me to get to that goal, because at the end of the day, this is the one life we get to live. So
then why would you want the Jets?
No, well, what do you mean?
Why would a person want to at least get the Giants?
Well, he loves the Jets. He said because the Jets are a team that he believes he can turn around.
Okay, great. Okay. So here, these are just the hadith that talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's generosity. The point here, again, is what do we take away from it? We take away Allah's incredible benevolence, and that's why we should ask Allah a lot. You know, sometimes, for example, you have a friend of yours, or a person, or a mentor, or a person that you call, right?
Sure.
When you're in trouble, when you're in a bind. What do? You call them for big things, or you call them for little things? You would call them for the things that are, that you think they would, if you have someone who's like really high up there, right? You've got a millionaire uncle or something like that.
Okay.
You would call them for big deals. you wouldn't call them for, hey, can I borrow? If you need to borrow $20.
Or it's like the example of the king. Would you ask a king for a penny or?
Exactly. You wouldn't ask a king for a penny, right? You would ask them for big, big things. And so two things that you immediately take away from Allah's name being Al-Jawad, and this is, we can just wrap up this episode just with this.
Yeah.
Number one is you ask him for big things because he loves to give. That's number one. But the opposite of that is that you ask him for small things too because he loves to give. And that's really the big differentiation here between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and everybody else. Everybody else, you categorize.
Yeah.
This is the guy that I ask for the small things.
Yeah.
$20, $10, $100. And then if I asked him for it 2 weeks ago, I'm not going to ask him again because I'm going to put him in a different rotation now because, you know, I might re-ask him again in 6 months.
Yeah.
I got to ask another friend for whatever. And if it's a person who's a big stature, I ask him for big things. I don't ask them for the small things. However, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he's Al-Jawad, he's Al-Kareem.
Dude, it's just like, this is just marketing and business 101 right here, because it's like, you don't go for the big company contract asking for a small fee.
Yes.
You go for the big company asking for a big fee, and they give you a lot of work.
Yep.
Similarly, when you go to Allah, you don't ask for small things.
But you do. That's the point.
Right, you do, but like, it's just the fact that you don't just, like, you don't, like, some people just ask for small things. Some people just ask for big things.
And ask for everything.
Yeah.
And if you're asking Allah for the big and for the small, then what are you doing? You're asking Him all the time.
Yeah.
And that's the point. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves to be asked because He is Jawad. He loves to give.
Allah loves to give.
Allah loves to give.
Yeah. Like just to quote, death seeking greatness is the same as death seeking mediocrity.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
All right, sit down.